Afternoon, everybody, or good morning from London. It might be evening where you are watching us from. Welcome to this webinar, which is all about how governments can create next generation disbursement schemes. So how governments can make sure they get their welfare and support payments ready for the next crises. I'm Siobhan Bonita. I'm a former civil servant here in the UK, and I'm delighted to be chairing this webinar on behalf of Global Government Forum. That's a publishing house that serves civil servants all around the world, and with our knowledge partner today, Visa, who have been working with the research company Kearney. As I said a little while ago, we are live translating this webinar into Thai and into Vietnamese. So if you would like to use either of those languages, please click on the interpretation button that you should find on your screen now. And I think the instructions have also been sent out in the chat function. In terms of today's topic, government disbursement programs provide support to billions of people and businesses every year, with estimates putting the total spending by governments at around 1.5% of the entire global economy. The importance of these schemes was particularly visible during the coronavirus pandemic, when governments around the world had to deliver payments at speed, often using modern digital technology that had not been used at such scale before. However, new research carried out by Visa and Kearney has warned that lessons from these COVID schemes risks being lost as governments return to normality and revert to previous methods of payment. So in this webinar, we're going to hear a bit about that research, as well as the perspective from 3 governments in terms of lessons learned and what is needed to create modern and efficient and responsive payment systems in the new normal. We have an expert panel with us here today, and in a moment, I'm going to ask them to give us their opening remarks. But once they have spoken, it will also be your opportunity as our audience to put your questions to our speakers. So from any point now on, you should see a Q&A button on whichever device you are using. Please use that Q&A function to message in any questions that you have about payment systems to any of our speakers. And we will get through as many of those questions we can before the end of the webinar. And finally, once again, if you would like to use the translation into Thai or Vietnamese, please click on the interpretation button. Our fantastic panel today, I'm going to introduce each of them. So first we will hear from Azrin Azlina Anor, who is Head of Government Solutions for Asia Pacific at Visa, where she is responsible for driving business opportunities that advance government's digitalization agenda and help economies and deliver sustainable social impact all around the world. These include supporting government payment flows, urban mobility, and data insights. Azrin has been at Visa since 2017, leading Visa's policy and partnership engagements with regulatory bodies, with public sector stakeholders, international organizations, and business associations across several markets in Southeast Asia. Then we will hear from Patricia Zhao, who is Deputy Director and Product Lead of GovWallet at Singapore GovTech. As a product lead for GovWallet, Patricia leads agile teams who collaborate closely with government agencies and industry partners to provide agencies with seamless disbursement solutions and recipients with the convenience of spending their government payouts electronically. Then we will hear from Maria Francesca del Rosario, who is Undersecretary and Head of the Information and Communications Technology Group and Chief Information Officer at the Department of Budget and Management in the Philippines. Maria previously served as Vice President and Head of Artificial Intelligence and Data Policy at Union Bank of the Philippines, and including many other roles, was a senior cybersecurity consultant of a European-based firm, Indra. She has many accolades to her name and was recently recognized as a leading woman in security by the Women's Security Alliance in the Philippines and a Best in Future Trust by the International Data Corporation in the Philippines and the Asia Pacific region. And then last but by no means least, we head over to India, where we will hear from Prashant Kumar Mittal, who is Deputy Director General at the National Informatics Centre in the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Prashant has 35 years of experience in the e-government domain with core competencies in evidence-based policy planning, capacity building, process re-engineering and corporate management. Prashant has worked across the policy process from development through to design and delivery, in particular of ICT to rural areas across India. I'm sure you'll agree with me. We have a fantastic panel here with us here today. As I said, please do send in any questions that you have, and we will get through those by the end of the webinar. But now I'm going to invite Azrin to give us her opening remarks. Thank you, Azrin.
Thank you, Siobhan, for the introductions. And thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar today. I'm Azrin, and I lead Visa Government Solutions in Asia Pacific, based out of Singapore. Over the past year, Visa worked with Kearney, and we have identified 5 universal opportunities for governments to improve public services. This is done via the deployment of digital payments, payments infrastructure, and payments data. These papers are informed by speaking to many government officials around the world, a lot of research, and documents over 250 case study examples of how governments and the private sector can collaborate, and also key lessons learned from various government digital transformation programs. Our primary objective of the webinar today is to raise awareness of the white paper, Next Generation Government Disbursement Programs, that was recently published. You will be able to see on the slide a QR code where you can have access to all of these papers, including the one we're discussing today. Today's paper really covers an important topic of disbursements, which touches the lives and indeed livelihood of individuals most in need. We aim to achieve 3 important outcomes from this discussion. Firstly, showcase what governments around the world have been doing in the area of transforming their disbursements programs. Secondly, highlight the impact of disbursements to beneficiaries and government agencies on programs that are well-defined and executed. And thirdly, call out key findings from the paper, discuss components of what would make a successful disbursement program, and some of the often found challenges that we can all learn from, and that can and have been overcome by digitalization. Now, over the course of 2020 to 2021, as a result of COVID, government disbursements programs have expanded 13.5% during COVID, with over 4,000 programs across 233 economies worldwide. This equated to more than 13.8 trillion of disbursements across the globe. Peak COVID, World Bank estimated some 17% of global population that actually depends on social benefits. In public disbursement programs, digital infrastructure and payments mean governments can quickly and efficiently get vital financial support to both people and businesses in need. Allow me to share some examples. In the fall of 2021, Ukraine was experiencing rising COVID-19 cases amidst low vaccination rates and protests against vaccine mandates. The Ukrainian government decided that every fully vaccinated adult would receive about $35 as a one-time disbursement. Visa worked with a number of banks to enable digital issuance for these disbursements within the quick turnaround time. The use of merchant category codes, which limited transactions to specific merchants, were also helpful and in enabling how these disbursed funds were used. Another example in Guatemala. Around the first half of 2020, Visa worked with the Guatemalan government and 11 banks to tokenize a disbursement solution that allowed citizens to get cash from ATMs or make purchases at point-of-sale terminals, simply by entering a 16-digit code sent to them via phone. The program reached over 2.7 million citizens and disbursed more than 780 million over the course of 2020. Even pre-COVID, for example, in 2013, Visa had the privilege to work with Oxfam in Philippines. In the aftermath of the typhoon, we combined our expertise in finance and disaster response to create a prepaid card that could be easily distributed to get funding to affected communities as quickly as possible during this time. 2,700 prepaid cards were distributed to vulnerable families in disaster-affected communities in the Philippines. We are fortunate today to really have the stars of the show, our esteemed panelists joining me today from Singapore, Philippines, and India to share their experience. And I look forward to the discussion ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Azrin. Really interesting. I mean, what you said there about how different countries are transforming their disbursement schemes based on, in part, what they learned during the pandemic about doing things differently. But really some of the statistics there, quite eye-watering in terms of why we need to get this right. So as you said, $13.8 trillion of disbursements globally each year, and in peak COVID, around 17% of the world was depending on welfare payments of some sort. And then really nice to have those specific examples, very topical, is from Ukraine, right through to, as you say, the prepaid cards example in the Philippines. So real breadth and variety of how these payment systems can operate. Thank you so much, Azrin. And now, Patricia, I'm coming over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Patricia. You can call me Pat. Basically, I'm the product lead for GovWallet and I'm from Singapore. So good morning and good afternoon. Basically, GovWallet started our journey about 2 years ago. It's an e-wallet of sorts to manage Singapore government payouts. So mainly the solution was created for servicing the government agencies and to help them with their disbursements and for citizens to be able to use these payouts easily, tracking their spending all at one place and getting this credit seamlessly. Next slide, please. So GovWallet, in essence, is an API-first service. And what I mean by that is that it's an application programming interface-first service. It does not have a face. What we do is we provide a list of APIs. And in order for us to deliver GovWallet to the public agencies and to individual citizens, we need to then work with different partners to enable this solution and to provide this solution. So it is delivered through strong partnerships that we have with our front-end platforms, and that includes some of the front-end apps and ATMs, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then we need to work with the banks and payment providers, as well as government agencies in terms of their eligibility checks, ensuring how much each citizen is given and the various disbursements amount. What GovWallet does is a double entry bookkeeping of sorts. It has benefactor accounts, it has customer accounts, transfer facilitator accounts, and merchants accounts. So whatever that comes in to the benefactor, which is the agency, and goes out to the customer, they are all tracked. And so that we have a ledger system in place of sorts that we are able to then ultimately be able to share with the agencies what are some of the accounting that they need to do in order to reconcile those numbers. So the next slide, these are the front-end platforms that we worked with today. So within 2 years, we have integrated with quite a number of front-end apps, and mainly they are government strategic apps like LiveSG, where every the app services citizens throughout their life journey, like birth registration, baby registration and all this stuff, and then death certs and all this as well. Then we have SingPass as an integrator as well. And we have Healthy 365 app, and that is to ensure individuals live healthily and have a healthy lifestyle. So they will accumulate points, and using those points, they'll convert into, they call it Healthy 365 credits, where they can then spend these credits at available healthy merchant stores And that's the beauty of GovWallet, that we're able to ring fence the healthy merchants and to allow spending at these places. So we also have CrowdTask, is a web app that allows individuals like a crowdsourcing survey that we can bring out to the rest of the citizens, that they can do their poll and provide their opinions and their responses and gain points out of it, ultimately being able to convert it to reward dollars and spend it at various places. The ATM solution is something more for the people or agencies that are giving out payment modes such as cash. So that I will talk a little bit more later on the GovCash solution and why do we want to develop and work with the bank platform like ATMs to be able to allow individuals to withdraw their payouts as cash. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is how, in essence, GovWallet works. And the beauty is we have different government agencies' bank accounts. The challenge with combining all of them into a single bank account is really difficult, given that every single agency is set up differently. In a sense, they have their different SOPs, standard operating procedures, financial reconciliation. Even though Singapore is not too big, but every agency has got its own requirements, different banking partners that they work with. So when GovWallet comes in, we act as that middle layer, and we allow agencies to retain their bank partners. So they can bank with DBS, they can bank with OCBC, with UOB, and they can disburse individual citizens' credits through GovWallet without the citizen having a need to have a bank account. So what happens is when they do this credit disbursement, we do a ledger system and we track them. And when individuals use the front-end apps of the choice of their agency, for example, a LiveSG app, they will use a scan and pay option, and then they will scan a QR code. And when that action happens, the bank would, we will then instruct the bank to then deduct the banking partner, to then deduct the funds from the agency's bank account and pay out to the merchant's account. So that was the reason why there is no need for any individuals to have a bank account with the bank or to be a customer of the bank. So the government retains that information and the agency can perform their disbursements through this way. So in terms of spending, how does the QR scan to pay works? It is similar to all the various scan to pay options that you see that you're using today in your country. So in Singapore, we very widely uses the bank apps to use PayNow as a payment gateway. We use Nets as a payment gateway to get through payments from one agency, from one account to another. So I'm going to show you a quick demo of the app on LiveSG and how scan and pay works. And that happens on the next slide. Okay, maybe it will take a while for that to load. Okay, so this is what we see, and there is a benefits and support module. So every single module has a card. So every agency can have their own branding there. They'll enter the amount that they want to spend. They scan a PayNow QR, slide to scan, face verification, biometrics of your phone, and the transaction details are indicated. At the same time, if they want to view transaction history, they can just click on it and go forward to do that. So it's something pretty simple and straightforward. It takes a couple of steps for an individual to do that. So going back to the presentation slides. Thank you, Raquel. Okay, so then to understand the GovWallet and why the solution, we look into the different modes of government payouts. So we have basically two modes. And the first one is cash payouts, where there is direct bank crediting given to individuals through their bank account. So those are people that has bank accounts and account information given to the government and stored in the government's DB database, right? And direct bank crediting will happen. And then we have those that do not have bank accounts. And what happens in before GovWallet solution is that checks will be mailed to the unbanked, and they will then take these checks, go to the bank branches and exchange them with cash exchange, right? You get the cash out. Then you have another group mode of payout, which is vouchers. And usually these are reward type benefits. So for example, one of the recent cases that we worked with is MINDEF. MINDEF and Ministry of Home Affairs, they are giving out $100 to all the NS men, the servicemen, to commemorate NS 55, like 55 years of service. So in the past, they used to give physical vouchers. And then with GovWallet, they are able to run on this solution to give digital vouchers. So these are the two modes of government payouts if you look at the whole government payouts landscape. So next slide. And what I talked about earlier is that what we are solving is really solving the problem of checks to the unbanked and the physical vouchers portion. So in view of sustainability and in view of faster disbursements, a more seamless disbursement, this is how we digitalize. And of course, pandemic plays a very big part in pushing all of us into this mode of digital payments as well. So next slide. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the checks challenges. So Ong Ye Kung is our minister. So he did mention in an article that was in 2018, actually, prior to the pandemic, that Singapore needs to cut the use of cash, and we want to aim to become a check-free nation by 2025. So this is actually very feasible now that it's 2 years to 2025, 2 more years, and we are already doing that within Singapore. So checks itself, in terms of challenges, is really a high touch service. Millions of outbound checks makes it very unsustainable. The banks are also moving away from these check services as well. There's barriers for individuals to open a bank account. Sometimes they may have some liability or certain issues that they couldn't open a bank account. And there are also limited bank branches, given that Singapore itself is not so big. So there are limited places that they can go to cash out those checks. So the next slide, and that's okay. So I'll talk a little bit about the challenges for physical vouchers. It's inconvenient because in the past, if you get a physical voucher, you need to first go to pick up an area where logistics is being set up for you to get these physical vouchers. There's physical booth. So what we understand from our user research is that people need to remember to spend them before it expires. So they need to remember to bring it out. And when they visit a store and they forgot to bring out the vouchers, usually they're quite upset about it. And it's administratively burdensome for the officers in the government agencies to have to set up this whole process of procurement, sending out those vouchers, reimbursing the merchants if it's not a prepaid supermarket vouchers. So limited places to spend it as well. So moving on to the next slide, we replace it with checks with GovCash, so people can go to the ATMs and they can use the platform of GovWallet to be able to key in their NRIC, their identity, face verification, and draw down cash. The next slide. And then, like I shared with you, physical vouchers with e-wallet on the apps. So these are some of the things that we have done and we have launched in the past couple of years. It's there. I think that's the final slide. Is that the next slide? Okay, so we extended, we worked with the payment gateways that's why I talked about strong partnership with different partners to establish this payment gateways that already have about 164,000 merchants on its network, and Nets having 43,000 on its network. So the moment the agencies give out this disbursement, these individuals having these credits can now spend at this wide variety of places without the need to onboard those merchants onto this platform. So yeah, with that, that's a brief introduction. Yeah, over to you, Siobhan.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Pat. Fascinating to hear the solution that you are following in Singapore, how you've created this system that behind the scenes joins up all of the different agencies in the way that you have there, and also how you're allowing facilitating payments in as well as disbursements out from government. A really interesting approach. I was going to ask you about the incentives for moving the unbanked into kind of bank accounts, but you kind of touched on that, and it'll be interesting to do a comparison with India when we hear from Prashant in a moment, because I think they use their system to very much incentivize people to open bank accounts. But really interesting as well, as you said there, the move away from checks and how people can spend on the app as well. Thank you so much, Pat. Great. I'm sure that's already stimulated a lot of food for thought from the audience. So please do send in any questions that you've had. We've got 2 speakers left, and after that, we will move to questions. Maria, I'm coming over to you now.
Hi, yeah. Singapore's GovTech solutions are very interesting, and I'm glad that they're there to to guide us as well as to what should we be following in the first place. Philippines has a long way to go in terms of GovTech, but we have our colleagues from all over the world to help us with it. I'm in charge of the public finance management, technology systems, and here in the Philippines, while we are digitalized, all of our processes are digitalized but they are siloed in a way. Some of them are not 100% connected yet. And so that's why the goal of the public finance management is to transform it in a convergent hub wherein it aligns with the administration's strategic direction toward digital transformation of government services. So this will require a lot of scaffolding, acquisition, and of course expertise, architecture, design, and development. We're also looking at India, in Singapore, and all of our partners in ASEAN in terms of how we will properly design the PFM architecture. So our strategic vision provides a roadmap, state of the art, IFMIS. So it's an integrated financial management information system. So what we intend to do is using APIs, robotics process automation, business process automation, both front end and back end, will be able to provide a convergent hub that will, stitch everything in the PFM. So this will support our functions here in the DBM as in terms of budget management, our finance department on the treasury management, as well as accounting and fiscal reporting of all agencies that we are servicing. And of course, our core mandate as well is on the budget execution, wherein we're the one disbursing the funds to our line ministries or agencies in the Philippines. We call our ministries agency or departments, all of which are, of course, in accordance with the reforms that we want to do. So what we also realize in digitalizing this entire PFM system is, apart from the tech side, we also have to fix the policy side of things. What you're seeing right now is on the national government side, we have systems, we have oversight agencies that need to see all of the data that we need to process, and you can see that enablers are enterprise architecture, data governance, and process automation. What our legislators also came up with the law last year is a Digital Workforce Competitiveness Act. So this law actually enabled our government workforce to pivot to digital skill sets. So also in time for right sizing, and to also because of the redundancy probably of that will be the consequence of digitalization. We are preparing our workforce to be tech savvy, so we won't leave anyone behind. Can you go to the next slide, please? On the next slide, you'll see our local government units. This is the tech architecture that we or framework that we want to extend to our local government units in the Philippines. Our local governments have fiscal autonomy as to how they would spend their money, but we have oversight as to how they were able to spend it, and also we also allocate certain portion of the national tax to them for their consumption. And to the tools that we use are also in terms of governance and reporting are also in place, but as typical as it can it's usually is they're all fragmented in a way that's not connected, and then you have to make this siloed system talk to one another through application programming interface. And these are the things that we are looking at in terms of in the oversight of this data. All of the data that these will be generating should be accessible to the agencies that would have the mandate to see or to oversee the local government. You could also see that there's a DevSecOps on the side. This is one of the things that we're beefing up our workforce. We're looking at security and from the onset, not an afterthought. So, and I'm pretty sure that it's most of the time our standard now in terms of application development, especially in public finance management, because you have to maintain the integrity of the financial system from the onset. And can you go to the last slide? And lastly, in terms of I would say in the PFM cycle and budget cycle, we have preparation, legislation, and corresponding the fiscal policy, execution, and disbursement, and ultimately reporting. You can see that API is something that we're really investing on because it's really the way to go in terms of digitalization. Everyone has to be connected, and if you see how we can mobilize or optimize API, we can. I'm actually reading some literature on using an API and providing coreless banking, and probably it's something that the government can do, like a coreless government services. And once we create the proper foundation for that and proper architecture, let's say service-oriented architecture, API microservices, the plug and play Lego architecture, containerized, cloud-based, and BPA, and data warehousing, I think we will be able to create the ideal GovTech solution for public finance management, which is something that ultimately can be used for public disbursements. And in fact, this is something that we're looking at. We have come up with a framework. It's just and we're discussing the framework of the public finance disbursement with our principals. And once it's finalized, maybe I can reshare again with the team. Is we have released or issued Executive Order 170, which espouses digital payments and collections in the government. So and disbursement is something that's very close to me, because I came from the banking sector, and it's one of the reasons why I joined the new administration, because I really want to enable public payments for directly to the beneficiaries, because I was part of the team that disbursed certain financial assistance during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I saw how it's very quick, fast, and in terms of reporting, it's the reporting to our audit and accountants are fast as well using API. So there are many things that I think the same framework will be able to do once it's already up and running. That's it. Thank you.
Maria, thank you so much. I mean, you've brought in a different perspective there, in that you've set out really the kind of digital foundation that needs to be in place to then move towards kind of efficient disbursement program, as you said. So everything that you need to put in place, I think, will resonate a lot with the audience. So you need to have the technology, but also have the right policy environment for this to work. You have to get better at sharing data across agencies. you have to have the right legislation in place. You have to have the civil servants with the right skills who are able to do all of this as well and have secure systems. And then ultimately, as you say there, from all of that, you can build the disbursement framework that will allow those payments directly to beneficiaries. And your kind of passion for that, because of your experience from COVID, really coming through. Thank you so much, Maria. It gives us a really good insight into kind of where you are in the Philippines and what the ambitions are there. And now, last but by no means least, we are going over to Prashant in India for your presentation. Over to you, Prashant.
Yeah, very good morning and thank you. We see that the direct benefit transfer, that DBT, we call it as a nickname. Here, it has become a growth booster because it is, I have read the questions posed by some of the participants, that how different ministries could work together to achieve this. So I have taken one case study of world's largest employment program, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So just next slide. So it is not the case that we could achieve this in a day or two. All these beneficiaries of this scheme, they come from rural India. And you can think that when we are talking to rural India, so there will be less of connectivity, there will be less of financial institution, that of banks. So there will be scarcity of enablers, DBT enablers per se. But this scheme was introduced in 2005-06. And that time, as Singapore and other speakers have told, that there had been payment through check system or voucher system was there. Similarly, we were paying through cash or check up till 2011. And we came with electronic fund management, financial management system. And we take, because India is a federated country, so we took help from all the states. And we got best support from them. And during transition period of 2012 to 15, we established an electronic mode for fund transfer. And it was made 100%, I should call it 99+%, because there are some habitations which are still having some issues with connectivity and banking services. So it is as good as 99.5%. Where we are able to send money to the beneficiary across India, and the dues are paid very next day when it is due, very next day. And in legislation also, for delay, for single day delay, officers or the agencies who has made the delay have been kept responsible. So this is the responsibility matrix has also been fixed in legislation. And I am happy to know, barring few cases, we are able to achieve this target of next day transfer of fund to the beneficiary account. Next. So what enabled us to achieve this? In India, perhaps you all know that we are having Aadhaar, the unique identification for all of our you can say citizen or whosoever is living in India, they can have that Aadhaar, and 100% of the adult have already been covered with Aadhaar. So we have seeded their Aadhaar number in our Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes database. This helped in weeding out for the bogus beneficiary. So because it's a unique number, and this has reduced the process complexity. So because this number travels from A to G, and it is uniquely identifiable, all the bank accounts are linked with this Aadhaar number. So we can transfer money not citing Aadhaar, that bank account number, by citing Aadhaar number itself. This is the benefit So, and it is beneficial for complete ecosystem and beneficiary per se. So, because money will be deposited in their account, numbers are huge. We are having 271 million beneficiary workers who are registered, and out of that 150 million are active workers, because they what makes them active? For they had worked come to work on a government introduced program for a single day in a year, so that makes an active beneficiary. And for Aadhaar authentication has been done for 163 million plus, and out of active beneficiary it is 121 million. Next, please. So how we could achieve? We started with Aadhaar seeding, and we have requested all the workers to come up with their Aadhaar number, and after their due consent, we get that Aadhaar number entered in our database. And centrally, we pulled those Aadhaar number, name, and gender from a NREGA database to Aadhaar database, and the bulk verification was done. And thereafter, we are having NPCI, the agency which takes care of that electronic transfer of funds. So we got that mapping checked whether that Aadhaar number is linked with an account number or not. If it is, we made the flag yes. If not, we sent that list to our field agencies and asked them to hand over to that to respective bank branches and get that seeding exercise done. So this was the it took around 3 years to achieve this. 2012 to 15, we invested in this process. Next, please. So this DBT workflow, which I was citing that we could achieve in a single very next day. So the we call it village council or gram panchayat. Here the work order for the payment is entered, and we are having public fund management system server where this fund is transferred with the consent of Ministry of Rural Development officials. So this is the two-way check. The field agency, the ground agency, they have submitted some claim, and we have provisioned the approval at a central level. And that fund goes to accredited bank. Thereafter, it goes to sponsors account, because we are having federated architecture. Accredited bank is a single branch at capital, central capital, and sponsored bank, the states are free to choose their banks. So the fund goes to them, and they transfer it to NPCI. This happens totally electronic. This complete process takes 2 hours on electronic thing, and by 4 p.m. of the day, they got SMS sting on their mobile that much amount has been credited. And after 4 p.m., the reversal starts. How many payments have been credited, and we update our portal. So they get yes from their registered mobile number in program. They can get through the Citizen Service Center that they have received the payment, and in some cases banks also inform them that much amount has been credited into their account. Next. So India is a big country. Demographically, the figure may sound you can say untrue to smaller colleagues, a country with lesser population. So here we are having
we'll give Prashant a second, but I think his connection has dropped.
In last year for the DBT. I have taken major schemes. It is plus. It is something more than that. So that much transactions are happening. So you can say the growth. There was a phenomenal jump in 2019-20. Perhaps that jump is due to Corona. because in February, March, many transactions just from 69 and 690 million, it reached around to 100 million. And so the credit goes to Corona because it taught us. And in 2020, 21 and 2022, there is another 100%, almost 100% jump from 990 million to 150 million. So now it is almost saturated, but still we are finding ways to ensure that the hiccups, the noises in the current system should be reduced, and we are doing fairly well. Next. So this is the complete ecosystem which we are. So I have told about Aadhaar. We are having 1.37 billion Aadhaar, and 90 billion authentications are done per year. So that is the figure, sorry, per month. And we are having one government e-market where everything, everything of government purchase has to be done through that, and some penalties will be imposed on government officials if they don't follow the suit. So that makes them onboarded on GeM. And we are having a unified payment interface which takes care of all the electronic transaction of money, rupiah. So we are having 8 billion monthly transactions per month number, which amount to 158 billion value per month. So you can assume that how fast we are growing on electronic rupee or electronic funds. Yeah. And the taxation part has also been covered, the GSTN. So we have taken care of all the taxes which are being imposed on the sale or purchase of something. So we have all enabled that, and this has also helped in offering micro credits to my MSME. Earlier, they were not able to claim that their values because they were having sundry invoices. So now everything is documented, and this total ecosystem has saved us during tough time of COVID. And we use the same Aadhaar number and other identifier in the same ecosystem for monitoring our vaccine doses. So I think part of G20, we are also offering this public digital interface. Also, India is a current president of the G20. So we are offering this as a public digital interface. So if some country or some nation wants to get this, the good thing about our learnings, want to replicate. And most of the solutions are open source, open API, open platform, open stack. So there is no nothing like that. It will involve some cost, additional cost for licenses or those things. And so that is we are offering. Next. That's all. We are available for questions. Thank you.
Prashant, thank you so much. I really liked how you ended there, saying that as part of your presidency of the G20, India is offering to share their lessons learned and share kind of the technology and everything that they have done with others to really shortcut some of that kind of process and avoid making mistakes along the way, which is fantastic. And that's a big part of these types of webinars, of sharing best practice as well. But just in terms of what you said there, in terms of India and the Aadhaar, the kind of unique identification, the numbers that you are dealing with in India for other countries are just quite eye-watering in terms of how many citizens you have managed to reach with this citizen and with this system, and the difference that that has made. And really interesting to see. It hasn't been, as you say, a very quick process. You've had to work on this for many, many years, but you're now evolving that to use that identification system to do all sorts of other things. It's not just payments out, as you say, it's tracking kind of vaccinations, it's covering now tax and insurance and those kind of issues. So really interesting to see how it's evolving. Thank you so much, Prashant, for giving us our final presentation. Thank you to all our speakers for those amazing presentations. And we do have questions coming in. There was Patricia, somebody was saying they really enjoyed your clear presentation from Singapore, and has asked if we will be sharing everybody's slides and the recording, and the answer to the audience is yes, absolutely. So don't worry if you're struggling to capture everything, we will share the recording of this afterwards as well. We have, as I say, we have questions coming in. Azreen, we haven't heard from you for a while. You've been very patiently listening to everybody's questions. I wanted to come back immediately on you, just a couple of things on the kind of research that you touched on that Visa had done with Kearney. And just to ask, could you summarize for all of us kind of the key challenges that you found in that research that were facing kind of governments looking ahead in their disbursement programs, their payment programs? So what were the key challenges for governments, and also what were the key challenges for citizens in terms of the payments? Were there barriers for citizens as well that you discovered?
Sure, Siobhan. So I think on the government side, the pandemic exposed a number of structural issues. One of the key learnings was speed, scale, and security. They don't always go hand in hand. So in most markets, there could be different levels of government dispersed social protection obligations, but there's no national infrastructure. I think Maria touched on this earlier, like the sharing of interagency data, that's super important, and the lack of sharing thereabouts opened up the opportunity for human error and fraudulent applications. The social benefit databases that governments relied on to identify who are the vulnerable citizens were not always up to date. So contact and communication made it difficult. And I think, from the wonderful experience Prashant gave on Aadhaar, the importance of digital ID, that really helped in making sure some of the logistical challenges of identifying beneficiaries were resolved. I think if I were to double click, I think fraud is probably the most well-documented challenge for governments. And this ranged from individual eligibility fraud to maybe more organized programmatic fraud for both citizens and business benefit programs. So many agencies were hit by fraudulent applications from, say, ghost accounts, whether it's individuals or false company employees. And maybe just to cite an example, I think in the UK, the bounce back scheme that was established to help businesses survive reported as much as £6.3 billion out of the £46 billion program that were lost due to fraud or error. And then maybe on the flip side, in Norway, for example, the government actually used data mining and AI to identify fraudulent claims on wage compensation schemes with data collected from public company information or agency databases. So that really helped. Then if I kind of moved over to the challenges for citizens, I think the baseline we should recognize is that many citizens are totally reliant on these programs, right, to provide them with living support. So for them, payments delivery in a predictable and timely basis is critically important. If I could maybe just summarize 4 key challenges for citizens. One is around awareness. So, members of more marginalized communities, they may face difficulties when it comes to finding out about what social benefits programs they're eligible for, and determining their eligibility. Communication about these programs don't always get to the most in need. Number 2, the application process, right? For some of the more vulnerable ones, they find it often hugely challenging. We heard that in some countries, applications involve getting documents physically verified by multiple government agencies. Third area around reliability. So again, beneficiaries need to understand exactly when the first transfer of payments will take place. And for the most financially vulnerable, it is really vital to have the certainty that these regular payments will arrive on time. And then fourthly, just convenience. So the success of disbursement programs really depend on the recipients having easy, convenient access to use these funds.
Brilliant. Thank you, Azreen. So really interesting there. Nice summary. I think the fraud issue, I want to come back on that in a minute, because I'll be really curious to hear from our other speakers how they balance fraud kind of potential fraudulent claims with the need to get things out quickly during the pandemic. So what were the decisions taken there? But as you say, for people, kind of awareness, application and reliability, kind of key challenges for them. Thanks so much, Ezrin, on that. Patricia, we've had a question come in for you. So it says here, question for Pat, must have been a significant amount of coordination across different agencies and ministries to make GovWallet happen. How did you determine the order in which to digitize processes across various stakeholders? And what advice would you give to other governments, for example, the Philippines, who are trying to do that joining up now behind the scenes? So I guess this is a question about joined up working.
Okay, thank you for the question. So maybe to share, at the beginning of our journey, we started with an internal program within GovTech, and we gave out to only 150 people, staff within GovTech, to test out this system. So this is considered a proof of concept, and we get our GovTech staff to use a $50 appreciation token to spend it at various stores with PayNow. So that started our so-called pitch to the various agencies that is having disbursement programs. And to be honest, to begin, they were a little apprehensive because it's something really new to them. And it actually takes a while for us to convince like an agency to, think about it and to come on board with us. So I think it's through various engagements and discussions and this kind of engagement meetings and solving challenges together that made us work with starting from one agency and then propelling it to another. So actually, when it wasn't so bad for us, in a sense, it didn't happen in a sense that when we first have this product pitch and everyone wants to come on board. So we started with one agency, and there was a Central Provident Board, which is CPF, and that was quite a success. And then we have the next agency coming on board, working with us. So now the problem, or rather that one of the things in the roadmap that we're trying to solve is now that we are quite successful, how can then we scale to different ones? So in order to do that, I think one of the problems that we're trying to solve is scalability, which will then, we are in the midst of developing something for the agencies to self-service and to start using without the need of having their IT departments, their people that knows tech to work with GovTech in order to enable this solution for their financial disbursement schemes. In a sense, some of them are quite small in nature. They probably do not have so much resources to work on a national-wide campaign like other ministries does. So that in a way will help moving forward. And advice, just the second part on the advice to other governments in the early journey. I think that for us, we have a good, we have a good collaborative working arrangement with agencies on the onset. So we came in, even though as tech implementers, being able to help provide recommendations to policy, and it gives us this policy tech integration of sorts to be able to benefit the citizens and the end beneficiaries at the end of it. So it's more of finding the agency that's willing to partner you with that and go through challenges and hiccups together. So there is not a smooth road. There are many things that we went through. Yeah.
Thanks, Pat. Maria, on a couple of those points there. So one, the issue, Prashant said they now covered 100% of their citizens with a kind of unique ID, and probably 99.5 are getting payments out. Do you think, bearing in mind in particular that COVID showed how vulnerable people especially were hit hardest by the pandemic, how confident are you that you are getting payments out to people who need it most in the Philippines? And I'm just thinking of those things that Azrin said in terms of challenges. So in terms of people being aware that there is a system there, ease that they can apply to it, and reliability of the payments. How much further do you think you have to go in the Philippines to make sure that people are getting the support they need?
Yeah, here in the Philippines, we have a similar national ID system, which in fact India, the government of India is assisting us with in terms of benchmarking. We're in the process right now of doing the sandboxing and pilot testing the national ID vis-a-vis the disbursement of financial aid that and benefits that are our the Filipinos need. So what we intend to do is for the line agencies to have their own database wherein to validate or to verify eligibility, whether these individuals are eligible for certain benefits, and those are also the things that we are working on with our development partners in terms of API development and so on. So on the PFM side, that's actually on my side. We are enabling the API from the Department of Budget up to the line agencies, and then the line agencies will be using the authentication APIs that our national ID system is currently about to launch anytime soon. So on that end, we're actually creating patterns after India and Singapore.
Oh, great. So you're all learning from each other and using that best practice, which is really good. Prashant, I do want to come on to this issue of kind of fraud and eligibility, because you mentioned that one of the things that the system has managed to do is to remove duplicate applications for funding and maybe target some fraudulent applications as well. And I just wanted your sense of, do you think now as Aadhaar gets established and you get more and more accountability and you can track those payments, is fraud going to become less and less of an issue? Is that one of the objectives of having this kind of system? And I'm going to ask all of the speakers about fraud. And do you think as well that in COVID, a lot of payments were made to people who weren't eligible because you were having to work at speed? I mean, you mentioned there how quickly you get the payments out. Do you think one of the risks of being very quick is that maybe you give payments to people who aren't necessarily eligible for the payments, or is that not such a big issue in India?
Yeah, actually, I should mention that process which we follow in Mahatma Gandhi National Employment Guarantee Scheme, that we get that photos, images of the work done, uploaded. Okay. So that reduced the fraud quite significantly, because the photo not only captures the image, it captures the lat long, date and time stamp. So you can watch the gradual increment of work done. So as such, claims are not fraudulent per se, because I should say that majority of such practices have been checked and solutions have been found, because we found some cases where the person went to some place and get photo clicked of a photo.
Right.
So these type of activities we could have used AI to get that fraudulent photos checked. So we are taking all help of technology. And second type of things were happening in the amount transfer and amount crediting. So, and the withdrawal of amount from the account. So we have placed the two-factor authentication, and for SMS or 4-digit key has to be shared with the ATM or that person when they want to transfer fund from their wallet to another wallet. So that those checks, because we admit that certain pieces had been there, and still because the fraudulent they are coming with the new practices every day. So this is something where we have to be vigilant for every new thing, and the processes which we follow is that whenever something appears like that, we share the same information across all such programs. So everyone gets educated with that. And we are also running campaigns, special campaigns for our public, that cyber Surakshit Bharat, the safe and secure India, like that, where we are enriching their, I think, knowledge base, how they should behave in this change. They should not share their OTP. They should not answer to unwarranted URLs, like that.
Yeah.
We are also taught, don't believe anything other than HTTPS. So those things are continuous. And
Yeah.
whenever somebody is offering you windfall gains, there are 100% chance those are the fraudsters. So
Right.
that message we are propagating in different languages, because we are having hundreds of languages in India.
Yeah.
So we build content and get that transcripted. And we are also building that IT solution. Bhashini is one of that, where we are getting that text to text, text to speech, speech to text, speech to speech, from one language, one dialect to another dialect.
Yeah.
So those things are also helping us in reaching to everyone for
Thanks,
knowledge.
Prashant. So interesting the way you phrase that there. So as you say, digitalization can help tackle fraud in lots of different ways. They may be using AI to identify some of those fraudulent cases, but also, as you say, having to educate the citizens in terms of themselves potentially being scammed via this system. So all sorts of kind of things there coming into play. Thank you. I am going to come back to Pat and Azreen on fraud as well, but Maria, there's a question that's come in directly for you as well. And it's from a member of the audience, and they've said, following on from the lessons that Azreen spoke about from the research, where awareness of schemes is important, so just knowing, in Philippines, they're asking, how important is your government platform going to be in terms of social protection programs? So is it going to be a place where people can apply not just for specific welfare payments, but also to get an understanding of everything that might be available for them?
Yeah, it's must be designed in such a way that it's linked to our we have this code structure called Unified Account Code Structure, which is kind of a codified rule for each transaction in the government. So, for example, this is particular fundings for financial assistance in term for particular segment of people. So this funding will be going directly to that segment. So we are going to design it such a way that flow of information or data will be seamless, and since it's actually the funding are usually funneled through the line agencies. So the line agencies have their own respective programs as well, and the codes are structured in such a way that we can already identify what kind of social programs they are based on the code. So it's very going to be seamless. Yes.
Thanks, Maria. So that's a nice positive answer to whoever answered that question from the audience. Thanks, Maria. And I'm afraid I'm just looking at the time and we are almost out of time. So very quickly, I just want to put to Pat and Azreen this question that came in from a member of the audience. And it relates to the fact that all of you in your presentations have talked about the need for collaboration. So whether that's across government departments or with private sector suppliers, so banks, or with other kind of mobile providers as well. And somebody has said, since the end of COVID, it seems that we in government are back to slow and bureaucratic procurement procedures. So this might get in the way of some of that partnership building. And Pat and then Azreen, I just want your thoughts on this. Is there a risk that now we're out of kind of crisis rapid response mode, we might go back to doing things more slowly, and then that then prevents these payment systems from developing in the way that we would like them to? Pat, you first.
Okay, not really. Reason being, during the pandemic, it actually allowed us to work with these partners, and we have put together like tender agreements and set up agreements between these partners, and that will go for quite a long way. So I don't think it's going to stop, even though we are towards the end of the pandemic. more so, it actually helped us to propel even further to think more widely about innovative solutions to give out to do disbursements to our citizens and beneficiaries.
Thank you. So a very optimistic look forward that innovation is going to stay in place and we're going to keep working at speed. Azrin, is that something that you think from your findings rings true?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll make 2 points to this. I think one, just hearing from the panel, and in fact, I think looking at our study, there are actually 3 key components for a successful digital disbursement program. One is digital ID. Second is, mobile communications, internet access. And thirdly, digital payments. I think we call this like the digital trinity for financial inclusion. And in each of these 3 areas, we will need to work closely together with governments, so public-private sector partnership, to really implement some of the initiatives, particularly when it comes to how do we serve the more underbanked and underserved, which are usually the ones that needs it the most when it comes to a disbursement program. I think that the second point I'll pick up is, Patricia touched on the citizen journey. And just the question from the audience is now as well. I think we recognize that in every interaction between governments and citizens and businesses, there's often an associated payment event, whether it's making payments to the government or receiving a payment from the government. And I think, COVID has only amplified, I think, the expectation from citizens and businesses that they want that user experience with governments as well, because that then helps build trust, enables speed and certainty of government services delivery. And of course, for governments, deliver a whole host of valuable opportunities to deliver lasting impact to citizens and businesses.
Yeah.
And I think in some countries, we have seen where government and private sector collaboration, for example, I think what they have multiple benefit management, or like a super app that really simplifies the interaction between government and citizens, and build in, control, transaction monitoring, where some of these spends are made. And I think that can only come from sharing, like in a conference like this, across government agencies and across markets, but also with public and private sector collaboration. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Azrin. And with that, I think we are out of time. I mean, it was a brilliant discussion. Thank you so much. Interesting what you said there, Azrin, about digital ID as part of the holy trinity of payments. And I wonder why, why in countries like the UK, where we did experience a lot of fraud, we don't have a digital ID system. So there could be something there. It'd be interesting to see how countries develop their systems going forward if they don't have that foundation of a digital ID system in place. But I would like to say a huge thank you. Thank you to the audience for sending in their questions. Thank you to our fantastic translators who have been working very hard behind the scenes. Thank you to Visa for being our knowledge partner today. And most of all, thank you to our brilliant panel. So thank you very much to Azrin, to Maria, to Patricia, and to Prashant for lending us so much of your time and your expertise. It was fascinating to hear how these schemes have been developed across different countries, and to hear about the research that Visa have done as well. To the audience, all of this has been recorded. We will send a link with the video to everybody who registered and everybody who joined us live, so you can share that with your colleagues as well. And there will also be a write-up, a report of the key points that came out of this conversation, which will also be shared with everybody in due course. But for now, wherever you are, a very lovely rest of the day. And I hope that we see you on another one of our webinars very soon. Thanks to the panel, and thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.